Well, hello, dear friends from Fort Kochi. I'm in Kerala, which is one of the states of India. It's a fairly far south on the western coast of the Arabian Sea. Several sites to visit here. One of them being some of the oldest churches that were ever built in India. Some of the first churches ever built in India. The St. Francis Church behind me from the 1500s. This area was one of the first places to receive Portuguese navigator Vasco da Gama. And so the Portuguese sort of set up a thriving, spice business here, along with several incarnations after the Dutch and the British. This is the Santa Cruz Basilica. This is also one of the first churches ever to be erected in India. This one dates back to the early 1500s, 1501 or 1505. And when the Dutch conquered this area after the Portuguese, this is one of the churches they left standing. I believe it was rebuilt in 1887, and this is how it's been since. Well, as you make your way through Fort Kochi, I would recommend doing it on foot. It's a fairly compact area, and you can walk from the different churches, basilicas, to the waterfront, to Princess Street, all pretty easily. There won't be a shortage of tuk-tuks offering you rides and tours of the city. You'll get requests for service to be provided. About every block or so, there'll be a tuk-tuk offering to take you on a city tour. Fort Kochi's charm really resides in its ties to the past. Its architecture obviously is informed by the Portuguese, the Dutch, and the British. Kerala, which is right on the water, has a much slower pace. You can sit by the water here, have this chai, and just sort of decompress from your travels throughout the bigger cities in India. This is an area that has a little bit of a, kind of like a walk, waterfront walk. There's a lot of little shops and vendors. At the end of this walk, there's a group of Chinese fishing net set up. They kind of have they're pretty amazing visually, but they have kind of a bad reputation just being like a big cutthroat. They'll pull tourists up onto the platforms and let you pull the nets in, but it's, I guess, pretty pricey, and they are pretty cutthroat in terms of getting your attention and getting you up onto their pier. I also hear that the people on the pier are just sort of the middlemen, and that most of the money ends up going to the guys that actually own the piers. So this area of Kochi is called Jewtown. It sounds a little derogatory, but that's how it's known here. This area has the most amazing antiques that you could imagine seeing. I just walked through a really large one. Most of them don't allow you to photograph the items or inside the store, but each of these antique stores feel like a museum in and of itself. Amazing artifacts, statues, figurines, boxes, furniture, thousands of pieces. So it's a real treat to kind of walk through and see some of this stuff. Some of it's new, some of it's reproductions, but a lot of it is authentic, real antiques. My tuk-tuk driver told me that there aren't any more Jewish families that live here. They've all left about 2 years ago. But originally they were given sanctuary here and created their own community. There's a synagogue and there's also a cemetery. I'm told that the Jews that are here come here for a couple of years and then leave to sort of maintain the community. But there aren't any Jewish families that live here permanently anymore. This is a great place to come. There's lots of little shops, handicrafts, little restaurants. It's another really well-developed shopping area. And like most places in Kochi, it's a little more relaxed and a little easier to move around and get around. And of course, everywhere you go here, you'll see the influence of colonialism on the architecture, the culture. So this is a really beautiful place to come and for an afternoon of shopping and exploring Kochi. So in Kerala, there's a traditional dance with heavily make-upped face called Kathakali. Basically, it's all sort of pantomimed acting, and so you can go see one of these shows. They spend some time at the beginning of the show putting the makeup on, and then they'll act out the show with the makeup. Well, good morning, dear friends. Today we're heading to the center of town here at Kochi. There's a backwater canoe tour I'm taking today. It's a half-day tour through some of the backwaters that Kerala is known so famously for. This is one of the eco tours versus the houseboat tours, and these are supposed to be a little nicer. The boats are smaller and can apparently go in smaller areas versus the larger houseboats, which are more expensive, can be multi-day. You'll have a cook and all sorts of stuff on there, but this is more kind of a stripped down version. So when you go on one of these backwater tours, they'll bring you to these little village areas. It's really interesting what they can do with just the natural plants that they have here. They have the coconut trees, obviously. They use the branches and the coconut outer shell to make ropes. They have black pepper trees or vines. They also have nutmeg, and they have the nutmeg fruit and the nut, and of course the flowers too, which are all edible. I've never had a nutmeg flower before, but it was actually pretty good. So it seems like this area, provides all sorts of things for folks that need basic stuff. So most useful. I have the coconut tree that provides a really just everything from housing to sustenance to materials. So this is Athirappilly Falls behind me. It's billed as basically the Niagara Falls of India. It's a massive falls. It's probably 75 kilometers northeast from Kochi. So it takes probably about 2-hour drive to get here. It's well worth the view. I mean, it's amazing sort of backdrop. And, I've been told there's been several films that have been made here, as well as, commercials and that kind of thing. So it's a lovely area to come visit and really take in the falls. It's really beautiful. Fort Kochi is an interesting place, and Kerala is an interesting place as far as Indian states go. It's one of the smaller states, but definitely one of the most educated. The areas you'll see here are much cleaner than some of the other, larger cities. Has the lowest illiteracy rate of all the states in India. People are defined by the coast, sort of coastal lifestyle. It's a slower pace here. You'll find it much cleaner, much more organized, a lot less traffic. People are really engaged here, fairly laid back. It also, the interesting thing is that it has a communist government. Now, it changes every 5 years. Currently, it's a communist, socialist government in Kochi. So, you know, it's very diverse. You'll find a lot of the people you talk to here will talk about the north and how there's a lot more friction and tension there, especially among different religions, whether it's Hindu or Muslim. And that seems to be more of a dividing point for folks in the north. There seems to be less of that here in the south, and people are a little bit more accepting, a little laid back, a little less concerned about what religion people are and what they believe. So I can appreciate that. It's a beautiful state. I definitely would recommend a visit here if you have the time.